What story does a stranger carry when it drifts across the void? Far from any sun, far from any world. A solitary traveler moves through the deep black silence of interstellar night. It does not belong to our solar system. It does not circle our star. It comes from somewhere else, a place unseen, a place unknown. This visitor is older than our history, older than our questions, and perhaps older than the Earth itself. It glides without anchor, a fragment of a distant system hurled into the endless dark, and now by chance or by fate it passes us. Like the mysterious Oumuamua before it, this object is more than rock and ice. It is a riddle inscribed in motion and silence. It is a question written not in words but in trajectory. Its form is strange, its behavior stranger still. Telescopes follow it with desperate precision. Astronomers calculate and argue, tracing paths and possibilities. Is it natural or artificial? A comet stripped bare or a shard of alien design? An accident of gravity or a deliberate message? Oumuamua left us unsettled with its strange acceleration, its uncertain shape, its refusal to reveal what it truly was. And now a second messenger arrives. A sequel that feels less like coincidence and more like the continuation of a story we have barely begun to read. The question is not only what this object is. The deeper question rests in its arrival. Why here? Why now? Why us? The universe has spoken once again, and it has spoken in mystery. In the quiet hours of observation, when telescopes sweep the sky for faint intruders that may one day cross Earth's path, a subtle anomaly appeared. It was not the kind of discovery that shouts its presence. It was a faint trace of light, a moving dot against the fixed tapestry of the stars. On that night, the instrument first to notice was an automated survey telescope, designed to map and guard the heavens. Its task was ordinary, routine. Its finding was anything but. Astronomers who examined the data quickly realized something was wrong with the motion. The path did not curve gently around the sun, in the way of asteroids or comets born of our own system. Instead, it cut across, a hyperbolic trajectory that could not be contained by solar gravity. The orbit did not suggest belonging. It suggested passage. This object was not from here. It had come from the deep between the stars. The news spread through the global community of skywatchers with a mixture of astonishment and urgency. Teams from observatories in Europe, America, and Asia turned their lenses toward the faint visitor. Just as Oumuamua had been spotted in 2017 by the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii, this new detection carried echoes of that earlier revelation. Another wanderer, another messenger. Scientists scrambled to classify it. Was it a comet, carrying ice and dust that might betray itself with a glowing tail? Was it an asteroid, inert and dark, a stone without breath? Or was it something new, something that required a name beyond our current catalogs? Every hour mattered. Its speed was immense, tens of kilometers each second. Each night it moved farther, dimmer, more difficult to track. Papers were drafted at a furious pace, theories exchanged in midnight calls and hastily assembled conferences. The discovery was not only a point of light, it was a rupture in certainty, a chance to glimpse what lies beyond the sun's dominion. The object, like Oumuamua before it, confirmed what had long been a theory. The solar system is not isolated. It is open to the traffic of the galaxy, a crossroads for relics of unknown systems. The first calculations carried both exhilaration and unease. For the first time since the last interstellar visitor, humanity faced a mirror of its ignorance, and the reflection was vast. The discovery sent ripples across the scientific world. At first, it seemed like a simple echo of the past, another faint traveler revealed by careful eyes and restless telescopes. But as data poured in, the resemblance to Oumuamua became impossible to ignore. The déjà vu was unsettling. Once again, humanity found itself confronted by a messenger from the stars whose very existence refused to fit the categories we thought we understood. For astronomers who remembered 2017, the feeling was familiar and disorienting. The trajectory was hyperbolic, a clear fingerprint of interstellar origin. The speed was extraordinary, more than 30 kilometers per second, enough to guarantee escape from the sun's gravity. This alone would have been remarkable. Yet the details were stranger still. The visitor bore none of the telltale signatures that scientists expected to see in such an object. Comets, when they approach a star, shed gas and dust. They grow tails, they brighten, they reveal themselves as icy remnants of formation. Asteroids, by contrast, are dry and inert, reflecting sunlight in predictable patterns. But this new body behaved like neither. It showed no clear coma of vaporizing ice, no radiant plume of dust. Its surface glimmered in strange, uneven ways as though it were smooth in places, jagged in others, its reflection unpredictable. To many, it felt eerily reminiscent of Oumuamua's stubborn refusal to match any familiar class. That earlier object had baffled with its shape, stretching like a cigar or flattening like a pancake, depending on the interpretation of its light curves. It had accelerated unexpectedly as it left the solar system, as though some unseen force pushed against it. Radiation pressure from sunlight was one possibility, though the mechanism remained unclear. To some, these peculiarities hinted at something unnatural, perhaps even deliberate. Was Oumuamua a fragment of alien technology, a broken sail, a probe, or a piece of cosmic debris cast adrift from an unknown civilization? Those questions, dismissed by many as speculation beyond the borders of science, returned now with uncomfortable urgency. For here was another object behaving in ways uncannily similar, raising the same doubts and fears. If once could be coincidence, what did it mean that twice had happened within the span of a single human decade? The community was divided. Some looked for comfort in natural explanations. Perhaps both Oumuamua and this new wanderer were examples of an undiscovered class of interstellar object. Perhaps they were fragments of shattered planets or icy bodies ejected by violent encounters in alien systems. Yet even these cautious proposals admitted something extraordinary. If two such bodies had already passed us, then the galaxy must be rich with them. They must number in the countless trillions drifting between stars like seeds on a cosmic wind. Others lingered on the strangeness. The absence of a visible tail in this new object mirrored Oumuamua's silence. The reflections did not match the expectations of a comet, nor the dull steadiness of an asteroid. Once again the models strained against the data, and once again the possibility of something artificial, however remote, whispered at the edges of thought. Scientists remembered the debates that had consumed conferences in the years after Oumuamua's departure. The most daring voices asked whether we had just missed a chance to witness an alien probe. One name often spoken was Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist who had argued boldly that Oumuamua might be technological in origin. His words, once controversial, seemed less dismissible now, for if the same mystery had returned, could it still be ignored? Fear mixed with awe. The universe, vast and ancient, had always carried the potential for strangeness, yet here was a suggestion not only of anomaly, but of pattern, a rhythm to the encounters, a possibility that Earth and its stars sit not alone in their quiet spiral, but within the pathways of travelers whose journeys we have only begun to glimpse. In whispered conversations and late-night discussions, astronomers wrestled with the same paradox. They were trained to seek natural causes, to distrust speculation, to remain tethered to the measurable, and yet the data pressed against their frameworks demanding explanation that refused to come easily. The categories of comet and asteroid no longer seemed enough. One could sense the weight of history pressing down. For centuries, every time humanity thought the universe was settled, a new discovery shattered the illusion. The Earth was not the center. The Sun was not unique. The Milky Way was not the whole of creation. Now the familiar families of objects, your asteroid, comet, planet, star, seemed inadequate to hold the strangeness crossing our skies. The categories strained like fragile glass. Even those who dismissed the alien hypothesis could not dismiss the deeper implications. If interstellar objects are common, then each is a time capsule. Each carries the fingerprints of another system's birth, a geological script written in alien conditions. They are fragments of places we may never visit, but that we can nonetheless study through these wanderers. And yet, in the shadows of possibility, the imagination wandered further. If such objects could be natural messengers, could some also be constructed? Could the galaxy's civilizations, if they exist, scatter such probes across the stars, not unlike seeds seeking soil? It was not a claim. It was a question. But questions, when repeated by the cosmos itself, become difficult to ignore. Oumuamua had left humanity with questions. This second object arrived with questions sharpened into urgency. The shock was not only scientific but philosophical. For the first time, humanity could not assume Oumuamua was an isolated quirk. The possibility emerged that these were not rare, once-in-an-era events, but part of a larger truth. If interstellar wanderers routinely pass through our neighborhood, then the galaxy is not a distant abstraction. It is here, brushing against us, writing enigmas into our night sky. Telescopes across the world strained to hold their gaze. Instruments measured spectra, light curves, subtle wobbles of brightness. Computers traced orbital paths, simulating past trajectories and possible origins. Could it have come from Vega, as some once speculated about Oumuamua? Could it be a refugee from a disrupted planetary system, cast out into the dark and set on an eternal voyage? The possibilities multiplied, each carrying its own wonder and its own unease. But the resemblance remained undeniable. Another silent traveler, another object that defied the categories of stone and ice, another mirror held up to our ignorance, showing us how little we know about what moves between the stars. The scientific community was caught between exhilaration and dread. Exhilaration at the chance to study something so rare, so alien to our experience. Dread at the realization that the mysteries of Oumuamua were not behind us, but returning, pressing, demanding. And in the long corridors of observatories, in the glow of computer screens late at night, in the murmurs of conferences and the fevered rush of preprints, the same thought pulsed quietly. If once was coincidence and twice was pattern, what would three mean? The universe had delivered another riddle, and with it a warning. The cosmos was not finished with us. It had only begun to speak. The moment its strangeness was confirmed, the world's observatories shifted their gaze. From mountaintops where thin air sharpens the heavens, to deserts where the sky is vast and unbroken, to icy plateaus where telescopes peer into the crystal silence of night, humanity's eyes turned together toward a single point of light. A faint wanderer, barely distinguishable from the backdrop of stars, now became the focus of a global vigil. Time was the most precious resource. Interstellar objects are swift, crossing the reach of our telescopes in mere weeks. Astronomers knew the race had begun. Data had to be gathered now, before the visitor faded into distance and memory. Instruments that normally surveyed thousands of asteroids narrowed their fields to follow this one body. Radio dishes reoriented. Spectrographs were readied. The pursuit was urgent, relentless, almost reverent. Spectroscopy, the art of splitting light into its hidden colors, was among the first weapons of inquiry. Every element leaves a signature in the spectrum. Hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, iron, each leaves a fingerprint in the light it reflects or emits. By examining those lines, scientists could read the chemistry of a body too distant to ever touch. Yet this time the fingerprints were blurred, ambiguous, and faint. The spectra revealed hints of ices, perhaps carbon-rich compounds, and possibly metallic content. But the mixture was unusual. Unlike the neat categories of comets or asteroids we know, its surface might have been baked by radiation over untold millions of years, hardened into something strange and dark, absorbing sunlight and reflecting only the barest shimmer back into space. Photometry, the measurement of brightness, soon added to the puzzle. The light curves flickered irregularly, suggesting that the object was not round but elongated or uneven, tumbling chaotically as it traveled. Oumuamua's light curve had once suggested either a cigar-like shape, 10 times longer than it was wide, or a thin, flattened form spinning like a leaf in the wind. This new traveler seemed to share the same disquieting irregularity. Its brightness rose and fell unpredictably, as if its surfaces caught the sunlight in fits and fragments. No neat rotation, no smooth symmetry. It tumbled, restless and unresolved. As the optical instruments strained, radio telescopes began their own vigil. Facilities like the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia and the giant dishes of Europe and China turned their ears skyward. They searched the frequencies of the cosmos for whispers that might betray something not born of nature. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, often relegated to the margins of astronomy, found itself pulled into the center. The reasoning was simple. If there was even the faintest chance that such an object could be artificial, then listening was essential. The scans yielded silence. No repeating signals, no narrowband transmissions, no whispers of machinery hidden within. But silence itself was not enough to close the question. An absence of signal does not mean an absence of intention. A probe could be dormant, a fragment could be broken. Or perhaps, if alien civilizations exist, their languages of communication are beyond what our ears are tuned to hear. Meanwhile, space agencies wrestled with temptation. Could a mission be launched to intercept? NASA considered the practicalities, as did the European Space Agency and others. The idea was intoxicating: to send a spacecraft to meet an interstellar traveler directly, to examine its surface, to drill into its secrets. Yet the reality was cruel. These objects move too quickly. By the time their presence is known, their escape is already underway. To mount a mission requires years of preparation, not weeks. Dreams of interception collided with the limits of engineering. The visitor would slip away before any rocket could be launched. Still, the idea of readiness grew louder. Oumuamua had left scientists frustrated, unable to do more than observe from afar. Now a second chance had come and was vanishing just as swiftly. If the galaxy was filled with such wanderers, then perhaps the next one could be met not with passive watching, but with a prepared response. Some called for rapid response probes hibernating in orbit, ready to ignite their engines at a moment's notice. Others spoke of larger missions, spacecraft that could loiter at the edge of the solar system, waiting for the next visitor. The dream was no longer theoretical. It was becoming a necessity. Data comparisons unfolded in real time. Every observation of this new traveler was placed beside Oumuamua's strange legacy. The similarities mounted. Both were interstellar. Both lacked the expected tails of comets. Both showed irregular shapes and light curves that suggested unusual geometry. Both resisted easy classification. But there were differences too. Oumuamua's acceleration away from the sun, unexplained by visible outgassing, remained unique. This new body showed no such measurable push, or at least not yet. Its trajectory was strange, but not as defiant. Its surface chemistry, though ambiguous, hinted at more familiar compounds. Perhaps, scientists thought, this one was less alien than its predecessor. Or perhaps it was simply better hidden. The debates sharpened. Some argued that these bodies were natural fragments of shattered worlds, ejected by gravitational violence in other star systems. Planets collide, stars tug on their companions, debris is cast out, to wander for billions of years until it crosses the path of another sun. To them, these visitors were not miracles but inevitabilities, reminders of a galaxy in constant motion. Yet others pointed to the pattern. Two objects, both strange, both within the span of a single generation of astronomy. The probability seemed unnerving. Could it be that interstellar visitors were not just common, but common enough to pass by regularly, perhaps every few years? If so, then why had humanity not noticed before? Was it because our instruments were once too crude? Or was it because something had changed, that these wanderers had only recently begun to come our way? The questions multiplied. The answers did not, and all the while, the visitor moved on, relentless in its passage, obeying only the geometry of space and the pull of the stars. As weeks passed, its brightness faded. Telescopes strained harder, reaching their limits. The object grew smaller, less certain in the data, a ghost drifting away into memory. Yet in that short time it had rekindled the wonder and unease left behind by Oumuamua. It had forced the scientific world to confront the limits of its knowledge, and it had whispered the possibility of a greater pattern, a hidden structure of encounters yet to come. In the silence of the control rooms, in the glow of monitors, in the late-night calculations of orbital mechanics, one feeling returned again and again. The universe had offered another clue. Humanity had grasped it, held it briefly, and then watched it recede. And in that fading light was a reminder: we are not the keepers of cosmic time. We are its witnesses, fleeting, watching as greater mysteries pass before us. This was not the end of the story. It was the deepening of it. Another stone placed on the growing path of questions. Another riddle written into the sky. As the data accumulated, scientists turned their attention to the most haunting question left behind by Oumuamua. Did this new visitor too carry the same ghostly acceleration? That unexplained push, first measured in 2017, had fractured certainty. It had acted like a comet, yet without the visible outgassing that would explain its motion. It had left scientists in a storm of contradiction. Now once again the telescopes searched the trajectories, hunting for the smallest deviations from Newton's clockwork. The calculations grew meticulous. Each observation fitted into orbits traced backward and forward through time. For days, then weeks, the numbers refused to yield an easy answer. At first, the new body seemed obedient to gravity alone, bending only as it should, following a path natural to an interstellar wanderer. But as the data sharpened, tiny whispers emerged in the numbers, subtle suggestions of something more. The drift did not perfectly align. The object's path seemed to shift ever so slightly, as if pushed by a hand unseen. The déjà vu was unsettling. Oumuamua's unexplained acceleration had never been satisfactorily resolved. The most conservative voices still insisted on exotic but natural causes, jets of gas too faint to be detected, or radiation pressure acting on an object strangely thin. But even they admitted the explanations were stretched. Now, if this second traveler revealed the same anomaly, the implications deepened beyond coincidence. Two interstellar objects, both defying expectation, both whispering that categories long trusted may be insufficient. The nature of its trajectory only sharpened the mystery. The orbit seemed not merely a random crossing, but strangely precise in its passage through the solar system. It threaded between the planets in a way that made some pause. Was it chance? The galaxy is vast and even improbable paths can happen. Yet the path carried an elegance that unsettled the cautious mind. What if it was not chance at all? Astronomers are trained to distrust intention in the cosmos. Stars burn because physics demands it. Planets move because gravity commands it. Yet here the mind wandered toward possibilities unspoken. Could an object from the stars carry more than accident? Could its course be guided, even faintly, by design? Speculation grew bolder when astronomers asked another question. What if this was not a solitary wanderer at all? What if it was part of a larger body, fractured long ago, now sending its fragments across interstellar space? If Oumuamua and this new object were siblings, then there could be others unseen still moving toward us. The galaxy might be littered with such shards, drifting between systems like relics of forgotten violence. Each solar system might be brushed by them, not rarely but often, and perhaps Earth had always been crossed by such visitors, unnoticed in eras before telescopes, their presence lost to the blindness of time. The philosophical weight grew heavier. If two had come in so short a span, how many more had crossed unseen? How many had slipped past in the centuries before humanity learned to watch the skies with machines? Our solar system, once imagined as an island of order encircled by void, now seemed less like an isolated realm and more like a crossroads. A place not of solitude but of passage. This thought was not easy. Crossroads imply traffic. Traffic implies frequency. And frequency implies that Earth itself may be witness to far more than it has yet realized. To think of the solar system not as a fortress of the familiar, but as an open gate unsettled the imagination. It suggested that what comes and goes is not under our control, that our skies may hold travelers whose origins, motives, or even natures are beyond comprehension. In the quiet of observatories, the tension grew palpable. Every new data point was treated with reverence as though it might tilt the scale between natural and unnatural, between ordinary drift and purposeful design. Astronomers compared notes, calibrated instruments, shared models across continents. Yet still the mystery held. One camp argued fiercely for caution. The faint deviations in trajectory, they said, were simply measurement errors, artifacts of instruments straining to see too far, too faint. Others pushed back, noting that the same argument had been used to downplay Oumuamua's anomalies, only for the evidence to persist. If the pattern now repeated, then perhaps denial was no longer a shield. And in the broader silence, philosophers and poets took up the echo. For if our sun's dominion is regularly crossed by wanderers from other worlds, then humanity is no longer an isolated spectator. It is part of a living conversation, one carried not in words but in stones and ice, in trajectories written across millions of years. The objects may be mute, yet their very presence speaks. They are evidence of cosmic processes that connect star to star, system to system, in a network of exchange more ancient than humanity's questions. But the darker possibility remained. If some of these wanderers are not natural, if they are in fact constructed, then the crossroads is not merely geological. It is technological. And if it is technological, then it is intentional. This was the thought many feared to voice openly, for to suggest design is to suggest designers, and to suggest designers is to admit that Earth has already been visited, not by ships flashing across the sky, but by silent messengers drifting through space, slipping past in plain sight, their secrets hidden in trajectories that only now we can read. The weight of this possibility pressed hardest on those who remembered how quickly Oumuamua had vanished. It had come unannounced, lingered briefly, and left behind nothing but questions. Now a second visitor had followed, leaving questions multiplied. If both showed anomalies, then the next arrival might bring either clarity or deeper mystery. But it would surely come. The crossroads is open. The path is alive. In time, the new visitor too would fade into the black, swallowed by distance, receding into the archives of data and the minds of those who had studied it. Yet its impact would not fade, for in its wake, it left behind the realization that our solar system is not a walled garden. It is a place where the galaxy itself passes through, where relics of other stars write themselves into our skies. The escalation was not in the data alone. It was in the awareness that this was not the end of an anomaly, but the deepening of a pattern. It was in the recognition that humanity's cosmic story is not confined to its planets or its sun, but woven into a greater flow of travelers, crossing, moving, vanishing. Each one asks a question, each one demands an answer, and each one leaves us more aware of how little we know. The solar system is not isolated. It is not silent. It is a crossroads, and the traffic has only just begun to reveal itself. When the data could no longer offer certainty, theory began to fill the silence. The scientific imagination, sharpened by decades of discovery and humbled by centuries of surprise, turned to the question that has always followed mystery. What could it be? The first voices sought refuge in the familiar. Perhaps, they argued, these interstellar wanderers were fragments of shattered worlds, torn apart in the violence of alien systems. Planets collide. Moons are ripped from their orbits. Stars pull on their companions until bodies fracture into shards. In the aftermath, debris is scattered into interstellar night, ejected at tremendous speeds. Each fragment drifts for millions, even billions of years, until one, by chance, crosses into another star's domain. If so, Oumuamua and this new traveler were cosmic fossils, broken pieces of alien worlds, fragments of histories we will never see in full. Others turn to comets, the icy nomads of planetary systems. Comets from our own Oort cloud drift on the edge of the sun's gravity, reservoirs of ice and dust. If other stars have their own Oort clouds, then collisions or gravitational disturbances could fling icy bodies into interstellar space. Some could journey endlessly, cold and silent, until they stumble across another sun. The lack of visible tails in these visitors posed a challenge, but explanations arose. Perhaps the ices had sublimated long ago during earlier passages near stars. Perhaps the surfaces had been baked into crusts so dense that gases could not escape. The idea of invisible outgassing, jets of material too subtle for our instruments to detect, became one of the more conservative attempts to explain the strange accelerations and irregular motions. Another natural speculation imagined interstellar icebergs, vast slivers of hydrogen or nitrogen ice, sheared from the surfaces of frozen worlds. Such a body could release gas in ways invisible to our instruments, propelling it slightly, altering its trajectory in ways reminiscent of Oumuamua. In this view, the mystery was less about technology, more about unfamiliar geology. Yet even here, the rarity of such bodies pressed the limits of plausibility. How many alien worlds would need to fracture? How many surfaces would need to splinter to produce the frequency with which such objects seemed to appear? But not all were satisfied with natural explanations. The resemblance of these visitors to one another, the strangeness of their properties, and the questions they left behind opened the door to bolder ideas. Among them was Avi Loeb's controversial hypothesis that Oumuamua might have been a light sail, a thin sheet propelled by starlight, constructed by a civilization far older than ours. Dismissed by many as speculation, the idea nonetheless refused to vanish. Now, with another visitor in sight, whispers of technology returned with sharper edge. If a light sail was possible, then why not probes disguised as natural fragments? The galaxy is vast, and a civilization seeking to explore it might scatter countless messengers across the stars, blending them with debris, indistinguishable from rock and ice until studied closely. Such probes could be ancient, perhaps relics of civilizations long extinct, drifting without guidance yet carrying within them echoes of intelligence. If so, then what humanity had seen in Oumuamua and its successor were not anomalies of geology, but shadows of technology. Not messages sent to us, but artifacts left behind, relics of purposes unknown. This line of thought extended into the most haunting speculation, that the galaxy may be strewn with such remnants. Not the bright, deliberate contact imagined in science fiction, but a quiet archaeology written into the fabric of interstellar space. Probes without signals, structures without masters, debris that looks like stone but once held in tension. In this view, the visitors were not alive, not active, but still profoundly unnatural. Tombstones of civilizations whose names we will never know. Beyond even these bold hypotheses lay stranger frontiers. Some physicists wondered if such objects might reveal interactions not only of matter, but of deeper layers of reality. Could they be tied to cosmic strings, relics of the universe's earliest structure drawn across the galaxy like scars of creation? Could their motions betray the tug of dark matter halos, invisible to the eye yet powerful enough to shape their journeys? Others speculated, almost in whispers, about higher dimensional phenomena, objects that seemed irregular because they were only shadows of larger realities, crossing our three-dimensional world like projections from beyond. These ideas stretched the bounds of science. They did not claim answers but painted the edges of imagination. In their diversity, they revealed how little was truly known. Each explanation carried weaknesses. The natural ones strained against the frequency and the anomalies. The technological ones lacked evidence beyond suggestive coincidence. The exotic ones pressed against the limits of testability. The only certainty was uncertainty itself. Through it all, scientific humility became the anchor. Astronomers reminded themselves and one another that the universe has always been stranger than expected. When pulsars were first discovered, their regular signals were so precise that some jokingly labeled them LGM, little green men. Today, pulsars are understood as rotating neutron stars, natural yet extraordinary. When quasars were first identified, their brightness seemed impossible. Now they are known as the hearts of galaxies powered by black holes. Each anomaly in history has eventually found explanation, though the explanations often stretched beyond what earlier generations thought possible. So too, perhaps, with these visitors. Whether fragments of alien worlds or relics of alien minds or something stranger still, they demanded patience. They demanded humility. The cosmos does not reveal its secrets easily, and it rarely conforms to the categories built by human thought. Yet the awe remained. The sight of these wanderers was not only a scientific event, but a philosophical one. They reminded humanity that it is not an isolated observer, but part of a galaxy in motion, a galaxy filled with stories too vast to read in a single lifetime. They reminded us that every assumption can be overturned by a single anomaly, every certainty fractured by a single fragment of stone and ice drifting silently across the sky. And they left a lingering question, the same that had haunted astronomers since Oumuamua's passing. What if these objects are not rare at all? What if the galaxy is alive with them, crossing and recrossing the paths of stars, brushing against countless worlds, carrying within them both the memory of creation and the possibility of intention? Theories and speculations may rise and fall. Some may prove false, others may find confirmation in the next discovery. But the vast possibility remains. The possibility that the universe is not only stranger than we know, but stranger than we can know. And in that possibility lies the true weight of these messengers. They are not only questions of science, they are questions of existence itself. The hunt for answers turned into a race against time. Every night that passed carried the visitor farther away, its light dimming into the ocean of stars. And so, the most powerful instruments humanity had ever built strained against their limits to hold it in sight. From the cold vacuum above Earth, the Hubble Space Telescope directed its ancient eye toward the fading intruder. For 3 decades, Hubble had captured the birth of galaxies, the deaths of stars, and the whisper of light from worlds beyond imagination. Now it was enlisted into a mission of urgency, to lock on to a faint, retreating point of light, to wrestle clarity from distance. Its sensitive instruments traced the brightness, searching for changes too subtle for ground-based telescopes to confirm. Yet even Hubble, with all its legendary reach, struggled against the relentless retreat of the object. Each passing week made the signal weaker, each attempt harder. It was a reminder that in the cosmos opportunity is fleeting, and mysteries do not linger for human convenience. Newer eyes followed as well. The James Webb Space Telescope, poised in its distant perch 1,000,000 miles from Earth, was commanded to seek the faint glow of the visitor. Its mirrors, gold-plated and vast, opened like a flower to drink in the most ancient light of the universe. But even Webb, designed to pierce the veil of the early cosmos, faced difficulty. The object was not bright, nor steady, nor forgiving. It flickered as it tumbled, fading into obscurity. Webb could gather spectra, faint whispers of chemical composition, but the window was closing. It was like trying to read a page in a book as it is carried away by the wind. On Earth, ground-based arrays joined the chase. The Very Large Telescope in Chile, with its mirrors gleaming beneath the driest skies on the planet, captured flickers of light curves. The Keck Observatory atop Mauna Kea in Hawaii added its gaze, splitting the object's light into spectral fragments, hoping to distinguish ice from stone, metal from dust. Pan-STARRS, the same survey telescope that had once found Oumuamua, turned its eyes once more to the heavens, tracking the faint dot with relentless precision. These observatories, separated by oceans and continents, worked in unison, like a chorus straining to hear a fading note. But for all their power, even the greatest telescopes could only watch as the visitor slipped away. Each observation added another puzzle piece, yet the picture remained incomplete. The frustration was profound. Humanity had the tools to look deeper into the universe than ever before, to see galaxies forming at the edge of time. Yet here, with an interstellar visitor passing through its own neighborhood, clarity remained elusive. It was a reminder of scale. The universe grants glimpses, not full revelations. And so minds turned to the future. The Vera Rubin Observatory, still under construction in Chile, promised a new era. With its immense field of view and rapid survey speed, Rubin would scan the entire visible sky every few nights, producing a motion picture of the heavens. It would detect faint, fast-moving objects with a sensitivity unmatched by any predecessor. When it comes online, astronomers believe, it will transform our understanding of interstellar visitors. No longer will they appear as rare surprises. They will be cataloged, tracked, studied, perhaps intercepted. Rubin is the promise of readiness, the antidote to the helplessness that followed both Oumuamua and this new wanderer. Beyond observation, some dreamed of pursuit. Breakthrough Starshot, a visionary initiative aimed at sending light-sail probes to Alpha Centauri, found itself drawn into the conversation. If humanity could build light sails to cross the stars, could it also build them to chase interstellar objects within the solar system? A fleet of ultralight probes, driven by powerful lasers, could in principle reach such visitors before they escape. It would not be easy. It would demand resources and ingenuity at a scale never before attempted. But the idea was no longer dismissed as fantasy. For each mysterious visitor lost to distance was a wound on human curiosity, a reminder of how much slipped beyond reach. Even artificial intelligence joined the search. Machine learning algorithms, trained to sift through the endless torrents of sky survey data, were now combing archives for signatures of past interstellar visitors that might have gone unnoticed. Faint anomalies in trajectory, irregular motions lost among billions of asteroids, could reveal that Oumuamua and its successor were not rare, but only the first we had recognized. These algorithms, unburdened by fatigue, scanned tirelessly, transforming mountains of data into patterns no human could discern. Already hints emerged that smaller objects, perhaps interstellar fragments, may have struck Earth's atmosphere in past decades, unnoticed until now. Yet even as technology advanced, the same tension remained. Urgency battled patience. The urgency of a fleeting window measured in weeks before the visitor vanished into the dark. The patience of science, which demands years of analysis, replication, debate, and doubt before claiming truth. Astronomers lived in the paradox of both, racing to capture what they could now, knowing that the answers may not come until long after the object itself was gone. The image was haunting. Humanity, armed with its greatest tools, standing at the edge of a mystery, reaching out with hands of glass and metal, catching fragments of light before they vanish forever. For every measurement there was a shadow of loss. For every spectrum, a reminder of what could not be known. The universe had opened a door, but only briefly, and behind that door was a silence deeper than words. As the visitor receded, one truth became clear. The instruments had done all they could. The Hubble, the Webb, the Keck, the VLT, each had captured slivers of the story, incomplete yet precious. Rubin, not yet awake, waited for its chance to write the next chapter. Starshot, still in the realm of ambition, whispered of futures where humanity does not only watch but pursues. and artificial intelligence, silent and tireless, continued to search the past for echoes of what may yet come. Science stood in the space between urgency and eternity, the urgency of now, of fleeting light fading into distance, the eternity of possibility, of mysteries that will outlast generations. The visitor was leaving, but its impact would remain, not only in data and debate, but in the awareness it had rekindled. Humanity was not alone in its solar system. It was part of a cosmic traffic, fleeting and mysterious, a crossroads where questions pass but answers rarely linger. The race had been run, the tools deployed, the data captured. Yet what remained was not certainty but humility. The humility of knowing that even the most powerful eyes can see only so much. The humility of realizing that the universe chooses what to reveal and when. And the humility of admitting that this was not the end but only a glimpse of what waits beyond. The visitor faded. The telescopes turned to other targets. But in the silence that followed, the promise of future discoveries grew louder. For the galaxy is vast and the crossroads remain open. And somewhere, even now, another traveler may already be on its way. When the visitor at last slipped beyond the reach of human eyes, what remained was not silence, but a weight of emotion. Across the world, astronomers lowered their instruments, their work done, their data stored. Yet what lingered in their hearts was harder to quantify. For in that fleeting passage, humanity had felt again the humbling presence of the unknown. The emotional reaction was as complex as the object itself, all at the scale of what had occurred. A fragment of another star system crossing ours. A messenger from the deep time of the galaxy. Fear, too, that something so foreign could come and go without control, without warning, reminding us of how small and fragile our place is. And longing, the ancient human longing to know, to understand, to reach across the void and touch the truth of what lies beyond. It is in moments like these that philosophy rises to meet science. The question echoes in every mind: are we alone? Or are we simply blind, untrained to recognize the evidence drifting past us in plain sight? If 2 interstellar visitors have already crossed our path in so short a time, how many more have slipped unnoticed through history? How many have come and gone in ages before humanity knew to look at the sky with machines? The possibility unsettles, yet it also inspires, for it means that our solar system is not an island. It is connected to the galaxy in ways deeper and more mysterious than once imagined. Albert Einstein once said that the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious, for it is the source of all true art and science. These interstellar wanderers embody that sentiment. They are mysteries not just of matter and motion, but of meaning. They remind us that wonder is not a luxury, but a necessity. For without wonder, science becomes mechanical. Without mystery, discovery becomes hollow. In their silence, these objects rekindle humanity's most important trait: curiosity. Yet curiosity carries both hope and danger. Stephen Hawking warned that first contact with extraterrestrial civilizations might not be a triumph, but a peril. He cautioned that to announce our presence too boldly might invite forces we cannot understand or control. In this light, the passage of interstellar objects carries a darker undertone. If they are natural, they are harmless, but if even one were artificial, if even one were a probe, then it means that intelligence beyond Earth has already crossed our path. And if that is true, then the question is not whether the universe has noticed us, but why it remains silent. Still, silence is not absence. Silence can be language. Perhaps the universe speaks not through signals or messages, but through the very stones it casts across the stars. Each fragment is a messenger of time, carrying the geology of alien worlds, the chemistry of alien suns, the scars of collisions that shaped systems we will never see. In them, the history of other skies is written, compacted into matter that drifts for millions of years before brushing against us. To study one is to hold briefly a piece of another cosmos, a relic of a story larger than ours. There is poetry in that thought. The visitors are not interruptions but continuations, threads of a galactic fabric woven across unimaginable distances. Their presence suggests that the universe is not static, not a frozen tableau of stars, but alive with exchange, with movement, with dialogue carried in silence. And so, perhaps the universe is not silent at all. Perhaps it is always spoken, not in words, but in presence, not in voices, but in relics, not in signals beamed across light years, but in wanderers set adrift, carrying questions across time. To recognize this is to accept that communication need not resemble our own. The cosmos may speak through trajectories, through fragments, through fleeting encounters that leave us with more questions than answers. As the visitor vanished into the deep, a final reflection remained. Humanity has always searched for meaning in the stars, imagining gods, myths, and stories written in their constellations. Now science gives us new myths, and not of fantasy but of reality. These objects are not imagined. They are real, physical, undeniable, and in their reality lies something more powerful than legend, the chance to see ourselves not as the center, but as participants in a greater cosmic story. Each interstellar wanderer is a mirror. It reflects back our ignorance, our wonder, our fear, our longing. It reminds us that knowledge is not a possession but a pursuit, that the universe is vast, not only in space but in possibility, and that our role is not to master it but to listen. Perhaps one day we will know for certain what these objects are. Perhaps we will intercept one, land upon it, drill into its surface, and read the history etched within. Perhaps we will discover only geology and be humbled by nature's capacity to surprise. Or perhaps we will discover intention and be transformed forever. Until then, we are left with the awareness that the universe has noticed us, if only in passing, that we are not alone in silence but part of a dialogue written in stone and ice, tumbling through eternity. And so the story closes, not with answers, but with a question. What does it mean that the galaxy sends us these messengers? Are they relics of accident or of purpose? Are they natural fragments of chaos or deliberate signs of company? The truth may elude us, but the wonder does not. For in the end, it is wonder that binds us to the stars. The universe is speaking. The question is whether we are ready to listen.